Zach Mannheimer is the founder of Atlas Community Studios, and you got to meet him and two other people from that group who are sitting up here and are going to be Zach's cheerleaders for this one. Very, very talented folks, and hopefully everybody in that session got a lot of great stuff out of it. He's also CEO of Alquist 3D, which is a name a lot of you probably recognize if you've been paying attention to stories about 3D printed homes, not just across the country, but also now here in Virginia, which is very, very exciting to see. And so that is what Zach will be talking to all of you about for the next hour or so, and we're really happy and really pleased and excited that he'll do that with us. So it's time to learn, time to get started with HousingX. Thank you all again for being here. And Zach, I'll turn it over to you.
Hi everybody, thank you for the kind introduction. I'm pleased to be here, joined by my two co-founders of Atlas Community Studios sitting right here. Why they chose to sit directly in front, I don't know. We'll talk about that later. Yeah, so if things get thrown at me, then you know why. So my name is Zach Mannheimer. I am the CEO at Alquist 3D. We are a 3D printing construction company, and some of you have heard about us. We've had a lot of help building our company and building here in Virginia. I just want to give two brief shout outs when we get started. We have somewhere in here, Dr. Andrew McCoy from Virginia Tech has been instrumental in helping us build everything we're doing now, and we're fortunate as well to have Mr. Vaughn Poehler sitting right over here in Williamsburg, who was instrumental in bringing us to Williamsburg to build the first house that we're going to talk about. But what I'm going to talk about is the community of tomorrow. And this is the world that we see and that we've been working in. And largely, we believe that rural America is the next place to innovate. We believe this for a lot of reasons, but the biggest thing that we've been tracking is if there's any major trend that's been happening over the last couple of years, it's this trend of pandemic migration, of people moving from one place, typically a larger community, to a smaller community. And we see article after article after article come out all the time about the types of pandemic migration that's happening. And when we hit a place where Spokane, Washington is too expensive, we know we've got a problem. And there's further data that came out a couple weeks ago that really illustrated that for the first time in a long time, major cities lost population. And there's a lot of reasons for it. One of the biggest reasons has to do specifically with the housing crisis and the cost of housing going up and up and up. But this is not necessarily new. For the past 50 to 60 years, the coasts of our country have been oversaturated, people have been leaving, they've been going largely to the middle of the country. You can see it here illustrated in the rural population loss over the last couple of decades. It is dramatic, especially in the middle of the country, of people leaving small communities and moving to larger urban centers. Here's, you can see in our congressional map. For the last couple of decades, the trend has been people leaving the Northeast and going to the South and the West. And that's good for all of you here in Virginia, and not so good for people in Iowa where I live. But here's a map of where people went between 2000 and 2007. They largely went to what we call second cities. Minneapolis, Kansas City, Nashville, Austin, Denver, Miami, New Orleans, Atlanta, Phoenix. These are the cities that gained population at almost identical rates as bootlegging. Everybody is magically much more attractive. These are the cities that gained population at almost identical rates as a place like San Francisco saw 100 years ago per capita, those second cities. But today, we believe we're in the rise of the third city. Richmond is the third city. Des Moines, Iowa, Boise, Idaho, Albuquerque, New Mexico, Little Rock, Arkansas, Birmingham, Alabama, Raleigh, North Carolina. These are the cities today that are gaining that population per capita, just like San Francisco did 100 years ago. And what's interesting that's happening is the remote work revolution is part of why this is going on, but there's this three-headed monster of migration that's happening right now, and it's unprecedented. You've got economic financial migration, that's always been true, of people leaving for places that are more affordable. Then you've got pandemic migration, and now you've got climate-based migration. People don't want to live where there's natural disasters happening all the time. So when you add all that up, we believe it's about 15 million Americans that are on the move right now, going from first, second, third cities, etc., down to other types of cities. And we used to say, before COVID, that those third cities were going to hit saturation levels sometime in the next 10 years, but all of it's changed. There's no rhyme or reason anymore. People are leaving first cities and they're going to sixth cities and everything in between. And it's because for the first time in human history, you don't have to be attached to a major city to experience the best arts and culture, the best business opportunities, and the best educational opportunities. You don't have to be in a city anymore. But you do need really good broadband, and you need an appropriate home to live in. So we're focused on rural for a variety of reasons, but the biggest piece is what we call our rural hierarchy of needs. And rural communities don't have the luxury of focusing on one of these issues over another. They have to tackle all of these things at the same time. We just did this in the workshop that we did about an hour ago. We were talking about housing, but there's so many other pieces to the puzzle. But at the base is housing. It doesn't matter how great your community is if you don't have anywhere to live. So housing is always at the base, and that's what we focus on. So if we see this opportunity, we need to take advantage of it. But the only way we're going to bring in tens of thousands of people into our communities is if we have the right types of housing. So here's the basic problem. Every time a home increases by $1,000 in cost, we displace over 150,000 American families. Now you multiply that by about $25,000 to $30,000, which is the newer cost now for lumber since the pandemic began, and you can see how bad the problem is. And we believe that one solution, not the only solution, but one solution is 3D printing. We believe that we can get to 30% savings using 3D printing over the next couple of years. We're not there today. The savings is minimal today. But we know that over the next couple of years, as the technology improves, as our experience improves, the savings are going to go up. And so we're really at the beginning of this industry right now. So we created Alquist specifically because myself, Libby, and Alex, and our other colleagues, for the past 10 years, we've been working in over 20 states around the country, helping smaller communities revitalize and grow. But it didn't matter what we were focused on, and we couldn't solve the housing problem. No matter where we were, housing became an issue. So the pillars of our company, we believe heavily in community. We don't want to recreate Levittown here. We want to make unique communities wherever we go. We believe in affordability, that a house is a home before it's an asset. We believe in sustainability. These houses not only need to be carbon neutral, we want them to be carbon negative. And we believe in using new technology like 3D printing, but other technologies like manufactured housing and modular housing. We want to marry these two worlds together. So we know that the inventory for homes for sale is at historical lows. This is what's driving this. Sale prices are soaring. We're somewhere around $400,000 is the median home price today in America, which prices out a good chunk of folks, especially in rural communities, to be able to afford a home. And then you've got the Zillow phenomenon that's happening. People would rather look at Zillow than do many other things, including the last piece on this graph that I'll just let all of you read for yourselves, and we'll move on together as a group with new information. So, what's interesting about 3D printing is that it's not necessarily new. This is a video we found from 1934. This is basically the same way that we're doing 3D printing today with a giant concrete printer, except we can do it faster and nobody's standing up there on a scaffold dumping the material directly into the printer itself. But for the most part, the technology is working pretty identically to how we do it today. However, what we want to do, our big achievement is, can we be as well choreographed as these three folks when we finish a house? We really want to be perfectly choreographed like these guys. Hopefully one day we will be able to achieve that. It's pretty amazing. So, the first home that we finished was in Williamsburg, not too far away from here. This was a collaboration with Habitat for Humanity. This became the first 3D printed home in the world to have a family living in. Now that was not our goal. We got lucky in terms of our timing there. But this is what it became. I'm sure many of you have already seen photos of it. Some of you possibly have been to the house itself. This is the house. 1,300 square foot, 3-bed, 2-bath, single-story slab-on-grade home that we built right there in Williamsburg for Springfield and her son. The exterior walls of this house were printed. The rest of the house was built traditionally. And that's important to note that there isn't any major difference in terms of a 3D printed house and a regular stick-built home, except that the walls are printed out of concrete. We smoothed the concrete as we printed it on the exterior. On the interior, April chose to put up some drywall to cover up the concrete, and you would never know that this home was 3D printed when you walked into it. It's a beautiful home, and it's standing up very well, and I think April's done probably 1,800 different interviews at this point, and she's still not retired, but maybe she is, I don't know, you can ask Vaughn. But it was a real pleasure to be able to partner with Habitat for Humanity. This is a video of the house being printed right here. So this is the exterior wall system. The way we print it is 2 whites on the outside that are roughly 2 inches wide, and in the center is a 4-inch gap. Inside that gap is where we insulate. That's where we put our rebar, where we need to use rebar for reinforcement. You can put conduit and plumbing directly into that if you want. You can put it on the exterior walls on the inside of the home. You can put it only on the interior walls. But the home is built just like any other home using this technology. So here's a few interesting facts that came out of the Habitat house. This is all from Habitat for Humanity. It took us about 22 hours to 3D print the exterior walls of that home. According to Habitat, we saved about 10 to 15% on the construction time of building this house out instead of if they were to do it traditionally. The home is EarthCraft certified, and because, thanks to our partnership with Virginia Tech, we put Raspberry Pi technology sensor systems inside the walls, and that's acting as your air quality control for your smoke alarm system, your security system for the home. But it's also looking to prevent any possible damage. It's monitoring for a potential moisture buildup or vibrations in the wall, so it can alert the homeowner ahead of time just in case there might be an issue. We have a new printer now from Black Buffalo. This is a company based in Pennsylvania that we're working with. They're one of our strategic partners. These printers are much larger. They're capable of going up 3 stories, and they're on a track system, so you can print multiple homes at once over a long period. This is video from about 3 weeks ago in Pulaski where we were doing our testing. This one, we're not smoothing the walls. This is what it looks like if it's untouched. You get that traditional 3D layered look to the home itself. This is right in downtown Pulaski where we're going to start printing 2 homes next month directly across the street from where this home is located as part of our larger project that I'll talk about in a moment. So here are the advantages of 3D printing. First of all, time. You're reducing the home framing time by about 2 to 4 weeks, depending on the size of the home. You have a labor savings. You only need about 2 humans to operate the printer. We're using 4 or 5 today, but we're working to get to about 2 over the next 2 years as we do more training. The material cost for the concrete is far less than traditional lumber. When you add all that up, that's where you're getting your savings over time. This is also a scale game. The more homes that we can do at once, the more savings we're going to have. That's on the front end. Then on the back end, again, thanks to our friends at Virginia Tech and the studies that they were doing, they found that a 3D printed home uses 50% less energy than a traditional stick-built home, which of course is another wonderful savings. We have 80% less waste on our job site than a traditional stick-build. The design flexibility is more dramatic with 3D printing. The life cycle of the homes, we believe they're going to last 175 years. This is concrete. It's not, people have been building concrete structures for hundreds of years all over the world. And the durability of these homes, this needs further testing, but we believe these homes can stand up to tornadoes, hurricanes, flooding, fires, and other types of storms that are happening all the time. This is another major benefit of 3D printing. When you look at the fire burn scenario, this map just came out last week. This is another major concern all over the country for where homes are unfortunately catching on fire. The other things that we're looking for are a supply crisis that's happening right now. Now the supply crisis is affecting us as well in terms of doors and windows and other pieces. That's just like us with any other builder. We have a lack of skilled labor, which I'm sure all of you know about, so we need to make sure we can fix that issue, which we're working on right now. There's a scarcity of lumber, and these homes are still built traditionally, so they can pass all the city codes. Now, it's important to us when you think about a 3D printed home. You think about all different shapes and sizes that you can create. But it was important that when we first got started, we wanted to make sure that these homes looked like a home. It looked like a house that anybody else would want to live in. So that's how we came up with a very traditional design. Here's how it works. You do your BIM modeling, CAD software that you use up front to design the home. That gets translated into the software that talks to the printer. You have people operating the printer, we mix the concrete on site. You have a silo, the raw material goes into the pump, it's hit with water, it's pumped up a tube to the print nozzle, and you print the home out layer after layer until you are complete. We received a lot of press about the first home in Williamsburg, which was fantastic, but I want to talk about why we're called Alquist. My background is in theater, so it completely makes sense that now I run a construction company. But Alquist is a character from a 1920 Czechoslovakian play that nobody's ever heard of, called RUR. This was the first piece of literature that ever coined the term robot. This is where robot comes from. The plot of the show is like any other science fiction book or movie you've ever seen or read. Man invents robots to help speed up his manufacturing plant. The robots don't like how they're being treated. They rise up, they revolt, they kill all the humans. Spoiler alert. But Alquist, who's the main engineer, is spared by the robots because he's the only character in the show who believes that humans and robots can coexist together peacefully. And so he's spared and charged with rebooting the human race. Pretty easy, simple plot structure. So we're called Alquist as a reminder that we are using automation. We are replacing human jobs with robots. There's no way around it. But we believe we can create far more jobs that might be lost by creating a robust workforce development program. We're partnering with Virginia Tech and others to create a curriculum so that we can teach this method. We want to start this right here in Virginia. And this will be ready next year, that we can offer it to communities where we are building more than 50 units. We need to create this workforce. This is an industry that we're creating. We want to start super young. When kids are really young, we want them right on the job site as soon as we can get them. I'm kidding, those are my kids. So, here's a list of the states that we're talking to right now where we're going to be printing. We have 4 strategic states we're focused on right now: Virginia, North Carolina, Florida, and Iowa. We've been contacted by every state in the nation, and we're working through how we're going to be building out the company for where we want to go. But we're really excited to announce Project Virginia. We did a press conference a couple weeks ago in Pulaski, where we announced that we're going to be printing 200 3D printed homes throughout the Commonwealth over the next 4 to 5 years. This starts next month in Pulaski. We're going to be printing 2 units right there. Then we're moving over to Roanoke, and we're going to be doing 2 homes not too far away from here in Newport News with our partners at Habitat for Humanity again later this year. So we're still ramping up. Next year you're going to see even more, but we're really excited about this work. Virginia has been super supportive to us to help us get moving, and we're really excited for where the future is going to go. We've got a couple strategic partnerships. Atlas, of course, is our other group that the 3 of us work for, and what Atlas does is works directly with the community on economic development, strategic planning, master planning, and creative placemaking. How do we make these communities unique? It's not just about the housing. We have to create other pieces in that puzzle, so how we can make a community more attractive to grow the population. It's a map of where Atlas has been doing our work over the past 7 to 8 years, all over the country, primarily in rural communities in 27 different states. We're partnering with Black Buffalo. They are our printer manufacturer out of Pennsylvania. They make the printer and they make the material that we're using. Mavericks Microgrids in California, they make the solar panels, the batteries, and the EV chargers that we're going to be putting on many of our homes. Atlas, of course, and then we have a development arm for the work that we're going to be doing. We have made a commitment to Habitat for Humanity right here on the peninsula, where we'll print at least 1 home with them every single year, and we're working with the National Building Museum for a large exhibit next year. So a couple of notes about the future for where we see all of this going. It's important to remember that this is the beginning of an industry. 3D printing is far from perfect. In America, there's less than 10 companies doing this work today. We have a lot more to learn. And you'll hear things thrown out there about how 3D printing can save 50% versus stick build. You can print a whole house in 1 day. And you hear things like that all the time. I certainly have over the last couple of years. That's not true. What we do know is that there is a slight cost savings today, and it's only going to increase if we put the work in, if we work hard to figure out how to do this properly. This is the beginning of an industry, and we get to own it. And what's so great about this work is you can't do this yet in big cities. The cost of land and the availability of land and so many other regulations, it's going to take several years to work through that before 3D printing is going to be commonplace. But in smaller communities, in rural areas, this is where this work can take root right now. Not just to build housing, but to completely reboot an economy. You take an area like Southwest in coal country. They've had challenges for decades. This is an entirely new industry that can take root there, not just solve the affordable housing issue, but create hundreds of jobs and reboot economies in these towns that were once vibrant. They can come back to life. That's the work that we want to be doing. Historically, innovative people have gone to cities to live in. That's no longer true. For the first time ever, and you don't have to be connected to a major urban center. How do we take advantage of that? How do we create Zoom communities where you're living in one place but working entirely in a different one? This is where things are headed. We thought it would take 10 to 15 more years to get there. COVID sped it all up. And so we have to recognize what's happening and take advantage of it. We believe that housing will be made more affordable by using 3D printing methods and other methods. Modular manufactured housing is also a way to do it. We believe that alternative energy sources are going to become more prevalent in rural communities. And we also have an interesting approach to home repair and design and renovation. In the future, when something breaks in your home or you want to change the look of something, you're not going to go to the hardware store anymore. You're going to go online, you're going to download a file, and you're going to print it out yourself. Every Alquist home comes with your own personal 3D printer built into your kitchen, just like a microwave. You can't cook with it yet, but it is printing out doorknobs, drawer pulls, the trim on your wall, your sink faucet. We're starting with small things, we're going to build up to more. We want to be able to 3D print everything inside the home, not out of concrete, of course, out of multiple materials. This is a maker future, where you can literally remake everything in your home the way you want it to be. Think about the economic ramifications of that. Think about the job growth that can come out of that. And so when we're in one of your homes, and what you see here is the printer that's in your kitchen, in just a matter of minutes, it can print out an electric socket cover. This socket cover costs 17 cents to do. This is where things are headed. How do we grab a hold of this now and take advantage of it as we go? We also want to create new materials. Concrete's great, but it's far from the most environmentally friendly material. It puts a ton of carbon back into the environment, which we hate. So we don't want to use concrete long term. We're working with several different universities and different programs right now all around the country to figure out a way to make a greener material. We're looking at hempcrete. We're looking at using recycled glass, recycled plastic inside the material mix. In coal country here, we're looking at using coal ash, fly coal ash in the mix. We don't know if it's going to be successful yet, but we're going to try. This is the beginning of an entire new industry that we get to be a part of. That's the thing that excites me every single day by doing this work. 15 million Americans are on the move right now. They're all looking for new places to live, work, and play. What's it going to take for them to come to your community? Housing is one of the most important pieces, but it's far from the only piece. When you think about your town, what is unique about your place? Why would anyone want to come visit and live there? What else can you be doing? How do you incentivize people as opposed to companies? This is a list of some of the smaller communities that I've been to in the past 2 years all around the country. What's interesting to me is no difference. Whether you're in rural New Hampshire, rural Arizona, rural Mississippi, rural North Dakota, all of these towns have the exact same problems. This is the great unifier that we need to be remembering. All of these towns have these issues regardless of location, regardless of size. Housing is a problem everywhere, and we must solve it. And I want to close with a quote from one of my mentors, Richard Florida. He says, "The remote work revolution promises to change the way that Americans work and live. It will allow smaller cities, suburbs, and rural areas to compete with the superstar cities on the basis of price and amenities. It will shift the main thrust of economic development from paying incentives to big employers to investing in building up a community's quality of life. As communities attract more remote workers, their tax bases will grow, allowing them to improve schools and public services, benefiting everyone. Eventually, companies will come too. That holds out the possibility of a better, virtuous circle of economic development." I could not agree more. This is the mission. This is what we're doing. How do we remake our communities to be, in some cases, what they once were, and to be what they can be in the future? How can we create equality? How can we create better economic development? And how can we create a greener place to live? That is the work that we're doing, and thank you so much for your time this afternoon. We have time for some questions. If anybody has questions about 3D or theater, hopefully theater. Yes?
So how do you plan to grow jobs when you said that it's going to reduce the amount of labor on the house to
It's a great question. So if you couldn't hear, she was asking how are we going to grow jobs if we're reducing those jobs by using 3D printing? So we're only reducing the framers of the home. We still need all the same plumbers, electricians, roofers, HVAC folks, landscapers, etc. We still need all of those people. We're only talking about changing the framers of the home, but still, that is a reduction. So what we want to do is using our curriculum to transform the workforce. There's 3 specific tracks that we can train people in. One is the printer operator itself to learn how to run the machine. Another is the materials director. How do you understand the material that we're using? The ratio of water to material changes by the hour. Our biggest variable is weather. It's a big problem that we're still dealing with. So that position. The third is design. Working with designers and architects on what these homes could be. That's just the beginning. Each of those 3 tracks could have multiple different tracks of deeper, more master's degree level courses that can be created. But we're starting with certificate programs at a base level to get the workforce going. So we think we can create 10 times the amount of homes that are, of jobs that might be lost as part of the framing process.
Zach?
In the back, Mr. Grant?
Are there any concerns, you mentioned fly ash potentially in use, are there any health concerns there?
Yes, so he was asking, are there any potential health concerns by using fly coal ash? We believe, we don't know, frankly. So we just applied for a grant, we don't know if we're getting it yet, to study what the environmental impact of using that material is, and is it even better? You know, we don't know if it's going to be better. Is it going to be more expensive material? We don't know. Our hope is that there are no environmental issues, and that it does make the material stronger, and that we can recycle a material that's just sitting there and is a big problem for most of Appalachia. So the answer is we don't know yet. As part of the study, that's what we're going to find out.
I have a question for you, Zach. Can you give a picture of, in 20 years, what you would like your company to be doing?
Sure, in 20 years, we're going to be using 3D printers to put on the best production of, no, I'm joking. In 20 years, what I think is going to happen is you're going to see 3D printing machines that are going to be much more nimble than they are today. Buying one of these printers today is like buying a computer in 1972. They're big, they're bulky, they're expensive, they're inefficient, but they do the job. The advancement in this world is happening very rapidly. And so what we think is going to happen in 2 or 3 years is you're going to see, for those children of the 80s, Optimus Prime. There we go. The printer is going to be a truck. It's going to drive up, it's going to transform into a printer, it's going to print what it needs to print, fold back up, and move on. When you think about a crane, when cranes first came out, you put the crane on the truck, you drove it out. Today, the crane is the truck. That's exactly the same theory that is being used, not by us, we're not the manufacturer, but by all the manufacturers that are producing these now. There's about 10 companies globally that's doing this. There's also 2 types of printer. There's the big gantry that we have, and then there's the smaller ones that are more nimble. Those are robot arms. We think those 2 different technologies can work together. But in 20 years, we think that these machines are going to be on every single job site. Not fully taking away all the work that's there, but complementing the work that's being done. Our company, we want to be printing in every state. We want to be printing in every country. This is a global problem. According to the UN, we need to be creating 96,000 homes a day to meet the demand by 2030. There's no way we're going to do it. There's no way. But how do we make a dent? So there needs to be 100 more companies, 200, 300 more companies like ours. That's what we're hoping for in the next 20 years.
Can you tell us the challenges you have may encounter when we go to building regulations and zoning regulations with 3D printing?
Sure, that's one of the 2 top questions we get. What are the challenges with zoning regulations and code officials, et cetera? The other question, by the way, that we get all the time is how do you hang a picture on the wall? Concrete anchors, that's an easy one. But your question, we haven't had that part of a time getting through code. It definitely takes longer than a traditional home, but it's an educational gap, really, is what's happening. It's concrete. We've been using concrete to build structures for hundreds of years all over the world. The term 3D printing is a terrible term. I hate it. I wish it wasn't the name of the industry. There's nothing we can do about that at the moment. But that's not really what we're doing. We're using concrete to build the walls. Instead of pouring them in a form, we're extruding it with a giant robot, which is weird. And that's where the code officials are saying, well, how does it work? And they have questions about the structural integrity, et cetera. So we still have to go through the same home building process that any other home builder has. We have a structural engineer that needs to sign off, we have architects, et cetera. So we haven't had a major issue anywhere that we've been talking to. It is taking more time. But something that I think is going to happen in the next 2 to 3 years is it's going to become more commonplace, and you're going to see this type of technology adopted into city.
Zach, what are you experiencing as you move into smaller localities about people's acceptance of this, and especially when you start talking about being able to reach out and train new people to this? Are you seeing people being attracted to this technology?
Great question, thank you, Juan. The first part of your question of how the acceptance of this method in communities. I think you all, for anyone who has ever lived or currently lives in a rural community, you need housing. You need housing badly. They will take, and I'm not saying this as a throw-off, but they will take whatever kind of housing they can get. So there's no barrier now. Our housing is super high quality. All the 3D printing companies make high quality housing. We've seen zero pushback, lots of questions. I describe folks as optimistically skeptical in terms of this technology. Everybody's excited about it, they want to learn more about it, but of course as we get down deep into it, people begin to get tons of questions, asking, and that's a lot of our job right now is just explaining this, because it's an industry that's being created. There's only a few companies doing this work. We're not the only group, by the way, there's several other groups out there doing this too. But it's an educational process. It's going to take time, like with any other new technology that comes around. So we haven't really seen much pushback. In terms of, what was your second question?
You're being able to attract new people to
Oh,
the idea.
so this is an idea that actually came from Mr. Jay Grant back there. As we've been seeing the trades go down in terms of younger people wanting to get into the trades for the past couple of decades, we think this technology can be a gateway to excite the younger generations to come back into construction. They want to play with something with a screen. They want to play with robots. Now they can. And we hope that this can inspire lots of other young people to go into becoming pipe fitters and becoming electricians and plumbers and the other trades that we're losing all the time. We think this is the way to build that back. But we have to have the right workforce development program. That's why the work that Dr. McCoy and Virginia Tech are doing is crucial to all the work that is trying to be done in this industry.
Two questions. With your current technology, how tall can you build on these walls?
Good question.
And then the second question is related to that. Do you see this having a commercial application, maybe even prefab, entire floors and bring them to the site?
Yes. So first question, how tall can we go? We've gone as tall as 9 feet. We have not printed above 9 feet. Our printer is capable of doing 3 stories. We haven't done that yet. Nobody's done that. Globally, there's 2 homes that have been printed 2 stories, one in Germany, one in Dubai. But in America, nobody's printed above 1 story just yet. There's a lot of groups trying to do it. Our printer is capable of doing it, but we're looking into different code regulations and what's the best strategy to do it. So we're hopeful that we'll be able to do a 2nd story, probably not this year, next year, that we're going to be attempting that. So, but the answer is really unlimited. As the technology improves, you can go up as high as the technology will allow you to. In terms of, and forgive me, your second question? The commercial adaptability, yes. So we're being asked as well to build commercial structures. We can absolutely do that just like a residential. I mean, we're building the walls of the home, just like we can build the walls of a commercial box. We're talking with folks at Walmart right now who want to have smaller Walmart stores as an extension onto their bigger stores because their stores aren't big enough. So to build them as an extension. So I think there's going to be widespread commercial adaptability for this, but it hasn't happened yet.
Hi. Very interesting presentation. Thank you for being here and sharing. I'm curious about the experience of the end user. Excited that you're working with Habitat for Humanity and those who are looking for affordable home options can potentially sign up, but there's obviously a long waiting list and right now production is low. At what point do you think there'll be maybe a point of transition where people can start to look for new construction opportunities? I guess they have to purchase land and build the 3D home.
So it's a great question. In terms of how the end user likes it, unfortunately, we only have one test case at the moment. And I can tell you that April and her son are very happy with the home. It's performing just like any other home would, so they're really happy about it. There's questions about, is the house going to be cold? Is it going to be dark? Is it going to be heavy? Is it going to feel like I'm back in elementary school? So we get those questions a lot. The beautiful thing about this technology is you can design it however you want. So we don't think everything should be concrete. We think we should use other types of materials as well to complement that. If you look at Icon's another company in Texas, it's been around way longer than we have. They make their own machines as well. They just came out about a month and a half ago with House Zero. It's stunning. It's absolutely beautiful. What they were trying to do, this is in Austin, so if you go online and Google Icon House Zero, you're going to see images of it. They used wood and metal and other materials to complement the concrete on the design of the home, and it looks absolutely beautiful. Now, what they were doing is really testing the limits of design with this equipment. They weren't trying to do affordable, but it's helping us learn and be inspired by what can it be. So I think we're still learning that.
I'm wondering I'm over here, other side. Hey.
Hi.
I'm wondering the current wage of a printer operator and how you expect that to change in the future.
That's a great question. So we start everybody that comes in as a basic printer operator, they're earning somewhere between $35,000 and $45,000 a year as the base level when they first come in. So when we're working, if we get the curriculum up and going next year, we're starting to work with some students that are coming out of high school that may not want to go to higher education, they just want to go right to the workforce. This is a great option. We think it's going to be a several-week certificate course to get the training, and then you'll be certified in how to do this, and you can come work for us, and I'm sure there'll be many other companies that can hire you as well. We see that increasing over time as well.
Zach, Jay, and one more question. Could you tell us about the cost differentials between, let's say, a 1,400 square foot home, standard stick built versus 3D printing?
Sure, and Jay, I marked it down. That's your second question. The difference in price is obviously one of the biggest questions that we get. Right now, it's very subjective. It depends entirely on where we're printing, on what the crew is. If we're printing just one home, the savings is minimal. If we're printing 20 or more, 50 or more, that's when we know that we can get to at least 15% savings in a day versus stick build, if we have that scale. Below that scale, we're not seeing it just yet. The savings is not there yet, but we see signs that it's coming. A couple things that have to happen. With the cost to mobilize, when we come to a new area, it's going to cost $100,000 to $200,000 just to get set up. To train folks there's no training program, so we have to do all the training ourselves, we have to bring the printer. The printers are big and bulky, it takes 2 days to set it up, 2 days to break it down. There's a lot of issues right now, and the printers are moving fast, but not fast enough. The material cost is low, but not low enough. There's not enough experience that we or other groups have in this. So when you add all that up, the savings is just a little bit. But we believe that in the next 2 years, once there is a training program, that we don't have to pay for the training, if they're being trained at a university or at a community college, that takes away the cost. When the printer is Optimus Prime or like that, that's going to move things faster. There needs to be more material on the market to offer different flexibility in pricing. Right now it's a very monopolized market. We need more materials to choose from, which will drive the cost down. So the goal, our goal, is 2 years from now, we want to see at least somewhere around 30% savings versus stick build. But we think the best way to do that is by taking 3D printing technology and modular prefab technology and merging them. We think what we should do is take the printer and put it on site and print the exterior walls on site. All the other walls, plus the floor, plus the roof, can be prefabricated in a controlled environment and shipped out, assuming we have a facility within a 30-mile radius. Then you add, especially if you're doing a brand new development or subdivision, all the underground infrastructure that has to go in, these printers can print those too. You're going to see tons of savings on printing the underground concrete water tubes that you see all the time going down the highway on a lowboy that's designed to go under the bridge, putting tons of carbon into the environment. That's incredibly expensive. Forget all that. If you're going to create a new development, put 2 or 3 printers on site, print all your infrastructure on site, you're going to save money there, and have multiple units going on track systems, so you're printing home after home after home. But they can't all look alike because that's a terrible nightmare version of a community. Instead, what's great about this technology is you can create different designs. So the home here next to this home, even though you're printing them at the same time, can look totally different. So the short answer is the saving is minimal today, but we believe it's going to get dramatic in the next 2 years.
Zach, we have one last question for you.
Sure.
Hi, Zach. Sarah Foot from DHCD. This is really interesting and cool information, and actually I was just wondering where, if folks in this room are interested, where can we learn more about this industry and some of the innovations that are coming along in the next couple of years? Maybe not just like, your company, but like all across, the whole industry, I guess.
It's a great question, and there isn't really a one local source. Somebody I'll point you to, his name is Derek Gross. If you look him up on YouTube, he's been doing this for years. He travels the world and films, I think at this point, every major 3D project that's ever been. Vaughn is his biggest fan. But he has, if you go and watch his videos, you're going to see interviews with folks in the Netherlands, in Denmark, in Germany, in Africa, all over the world. That's really the best source of information right now. We're working on putting together a gathering of tons of articles and info that's being put together. There isn't really a central source yet. So if people are curious, please reach out to me. My email's right there. I'm happy to point you in the right direction. Thank you.
So we're going to take a few minute break, and you heard it here first. Check out be on YouTube more frequently, and if you need more pointers, ask Vaughn Poller. And also make sure you subscribe to the Housing Forward microblog, because we will try to keep you up to date about this as well. So come back here in a few minutes at 3:30 for our closing keynote speaker.